what are ways we can grow this startup without spending as much money? The fact is, startups don't have a lot of money. They're not run like big corporations are run, and they have to be very tight with their money. And you may have some hacks or tricks or tips that you want to share with us. So please, if you're in the audience, raise your hand. This is an open mic today. We're going to have, let's hope we get 10, 15 people on stage. We're trying to come up with 27 ways that startups can save money. I also, if you could do this as well, even if you don't choose not to come on stage, you can share the room with others who might be interested in this topic. You'll see right at the bottom there, there's a button. I know Michelle and Jeff will share the room. I'm doing it right now. Share via Clubhouse, and you can actually share the room. So that's something else you can do as well. If you don't want to come on stage but still want to ask a question, feel free to use the back channel. Oxygen, that's what we're talking about today. And when a business starts to run out of cash, it's like the oxygen is leaving the room. Breathing becomes more difficult. You begin to gasp for air. You begin to focus on things that make your next breath happen, period, and ignore the rest. That's exactly what happens when you run out of cash with a startup. Your stress goes through the roof. You're about to default on payroll, so you do whatever it takes to keep breathing, maxing out that credit card, signing high interest rate loans, slowing down supplier payments, cutting key staff, personal guarantees, doing whatever it takes to survive. But could actually prove pretty expensive because you're focusing on the wrong things in the startup. You're not focusing on generating new revenue or signing up new customers. You're not focused on the needs of your employees, and you're actually digging a bigger and bigger grave. And I can't tell you how many startups I've been involved with who've been a great company, great people, great idea, but just simply ran out of cash and had to shut down. And I know, one of those examples is we bought a company in receivership, and it was an e-commerce company, and they had a payment program with Shopify. And Shopify, if you ever listen to me, I'm a big proponent of Shopify. But they had an interest rate payment that, when we calculated, it was effectively like 80% interest, because it was paid every week. And when the Black Friday sales hit and the holiday sales hit, essentially wiped out the interest payments, which effectively was something. It ultimately was like something like 60, 70, 80%. So when a company gets into trouble, it needs to figure out ways to get out of that hole without digging a bigger hole. And so, my first idea, actually, also, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to let Michelle and Jeff come up with some of their ideas. I want to hit 27. You're in the audience. Please raise your hand. Come share with us. We're just having fun here this Friday afternoon. Jeff, you want to give us a couple ideas? I got like 6. Okay, that's it. So we got to come up with 21 more for our blog.
And these are ideas to save money, right?
Yeah, so it could be save money or a more efficient way to grow. I mean, it's a startup, right? You're just starting out. I mean, the one idea I had, like right away out of the gate, was join an incubator. And I do a cohort over here at NSU with the Alan Levan Innovation Center. And I was there this week. We did a session on, it was the opening session for the cohort. And I heard at the end of it, she mentioned to the participants who are joining this cohort, by the way, for free. We all love that as a startup, don't we? Free. She mentioned that you can get a desk in this building, and this is a phenomenal facility, for $85 a month. You're making connections, you have an office. I mean, I don't know what it costs you to get an internet connection and to get the alarm system and security and maintenance and pest control and cleaning costs, power and water and insurance. These are a lot of things when it comes to an office. So best way to save money, I think, is join one of these shared office facilities. Jeff.
So a shared office facility is good, an incubator is good. But I think, one thing is to be careful about is not sign up for too many subscriptions, right? I think one of the things, especially early on, there's all these different services and platforms we can use to get started, and we sign up for them all, and there could be, different platforms to help you create content. It could be, things like, Canva and Animoto and everything else. And when we're starting out, we sign up for all of these and then end up only using a handful and forget to cancel those subscriptions. And before you know it, you might be spending $1,000 a month or more on stuff that's not being used. So be careful which services you sign up for and make sure you're auditing and only paying for the ones you're actually using.
True story, I'm driving up north and I figured out how to go on the iPhone and watch all your subscriptions. I asked my wife to do it. She opened it up. There were 39 subscriptions. There were subscriptions for like QR code readers multiple times that she was paying for, everything. So just right on your iPhone, it's very easy to manage as well. I know we got Gary here. Well, this is exciting, Gary. Um, we're going to jump to, sorry, Michelle, you're up next, right? So we'll do you next, Michelle, and then Gary. But really excited to see you there, Gary and Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh my gosh, this is such a rich subject and one of my favorites actually, because it's all about, I don't think of it like, oh my God, we're in trouble and we're cutting expenses. I think it really is also a lot about how do we focus on what is actually working as well as really prioritizing. And, the savings go far beyond, I'm going to say, monetary when you do those kind of exercises. But since this session is specifically about 27 hacks to save money, I'm going to say a few savings. So, one that I think is amazing is, think about if you have servers, developers, software, whatever it is, think about going to the cloud. Like there can be a massive amount of savings. And so that's one. Think about going to the cloud, not doing everything in house, which also kind of leads into, where can you use offshore? Maybe it's not offshore, but where can you not hire? Like for us, we love our, adjunct folks that are in, for example, the Philippines and India, amazing people. And the fact is that we save a lot of money there as well. But we only do it if it works for the business. We're not doing just this stuff so that we can say, oh my gosh, we saved all this money. We're doing it because it actually works and it works better.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
actually had an employee leave, and she was about 60,000 a year, and you
Yeah.
replaced her. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah. I mean, I have had amazing experiences, which I could go on for hours about. But yeah, I had a very talented, creative director that worked for us for many years. She decided to make a change. And so I thought, oh gosh, after talking to some of my friends, Norm, etc., and they were like, you might reach out to the specific agency, Multiply Me, MII, in the Philippines, because, there are some very talented young people, which I did. And I actually ran a very systematic, disciplined process. And we found the most amazing young lady that is blowing everybody away, that's like a creative, graphic artist. But what I say there is when you do this, set them up for success. Like you got to be engaging and managing and supporting, otherwise it's not going to be successful. For us, we've had a huge amount of success, not just monetary. Like I said, it's great when you can look through a lens, it's not just monetary, but it's also good for the other employees and it's good for the company. So I said clouds, I said outsourcing, and then I'm just going to
No,
say a
you're done.
third.
Hold off, hold off, hold off. You got to give us, you got to others some chance here, okay?
Oh, I
Gary's
could go
like
on.
doing the
I love
dance.
this subject, and I don't want Gary to leave, Colin.
I
Okay,
know,
so
but he's
yes,
doing
go to
he's
Gary.
very eager to share with
Gary's
us his
amazing.
savings. All right,
Go
Gary,
ahead.
you're up next.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I second what Michelle says. I met my co-founder here on Clubhouse, Tess, and he's in Lagos, and we have 17 full-time employees that work with us now, and they're based in Lagos. And I pay them in cryptocurrency out of my Gary coin that I created. So for me, saving was looking at kind of the world differently and saying, I'm going to operate globally so I don't have to hire locally. We're powering 35 creator communities right now with their own cryptocurrencies. So as I started to hire, I went to the locations that made the most sense. I hired a team. We provide a service that I would never be able to provide if we were, hiring everyone in the US. We have 24/7 concierges that work in my Discord server, 365 days a year. But I'm able to do it because we look globally, because we serve global clients. And then, creating my own currency. I live in Puerto Rico. We operate on a US dollar, but everyone in the world doesn't operate on a US dollar. So I had to break down in my mind, I'm not going to make the world operate on my currency. I'm not going to go operate on their currency. I'm going to create my own currency. So I'm not going to run on US dollars. I'm not going to try to run on whatever currencies in other countries. I'm just going to create my own currency, and I'm going to operate on my currency. And I use it to pay vendors. Like, I just hired a video crew to film an event that I'm running in August, and I paid them 5,000 US dollars, the equivalent of that though in Gary coin. And they immediately hit the button and converted it to Solana and probably took it to their bank account. That's cool. That's what they needed. They needed money. That's okay. They could have held Gary coin. So for me, it's if you're going to operate globally, then look globally to find your talent and pay them a nice affordable wage wherever they are, whatever they ask for. And then if you can, if you're operating globally, create your own currency, because then you get to drive the demand and drive the value for it. And you can use that. There's no reason to make everyone operate on your government's local currency. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, but I think, Gary, like one thing about you is you are really, first of all, you're a phenomenal speaker. And second of all, you've created like a vision for Gary Coin. And I think every startup, that creates that vision, like people are attracted to Elon Musk. They're attracted to Gary Club. They're attracted to, these successful startups, and they're willing to do things for these startups that they wouldn't do for a Fortune 500 company. So can you just talk to that a little bit? Like, how do you create this vision? I mean, there's a lot of us in the audience, or even I'm thinking, like, how could I ever pull that off? What Gary just talked about.
Well, how couldn't you pull it off? Like, if you're doing it, why wouldn't you have the vision that it's going to be wildly successful? Like Gino in my community, he's 27 years old. He lives in the Netherlands. He launched a community for, like, it's called the Drive Coin. It's car enthusiasts. And he went and he spent 2,000 Drive Coin, and he bought a car with it to remodel and work on TikTok videos. He took 5,000 Drive Coin and sponsored a NASCAR car, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. is retweeting the car with Gino's logo there. It's all with his own currency. So to me, if you're going to create something, if you're going to build something, why, like, you all believed in .club when you created it. You had passion, like you were there. You were all in before anybody else was all in. You were the ones that everybody was probably looking at crazy. So how can you, like, to me, if you don't feel that, then you should look at something else, or maybe go help someone else. I think there's a lot of people that are trying to build something, but they would probably be better building with others rather than just building on their own. So maybe that's a great way to save money, is have less startups and have more collaborations or more cohorts of people building together.
No, that's awesome. Gary, great stuff. I never would have thought of that. I mean, you're thinking out of the box. I think that's what every startup needs to do, is to think out of the box. And again, if you're in the audience, you're interested in coming on stage and sharing with us a tip or a trick or a hack, please raise your hand. It's Friday afternoon. We're here to have fun. We're here to figure out 27 hacks so we can put them into the blog that we're writing on this topic. I know Mimi's in the audience there. She works very hard at startup.club. You can go there and you can see many of her blogs, all of the recordings. It's a phenomenal database of shows, et cetera, et cetera. And she'll be writing the blog 27 hacks to save money with your startup. And in today's environment too, it's not easy with the inflation and surging container costs and recession and everything. Well, we have another gentleman on stage. Tom, I know he's not quite a crypto guy, but he is a CFO, and I asked him to join. He has some experiences he'd like to share as well. Tom, the mute's in the bottom right corner. I know you don't often come on Clubhouse. There you go.
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah, I, as an accountant and a CFO, first of all, I like to say for cost cutting, I support it fully.
But isn't that
To
funny?
some
Because you work with a
detriment,
lot of startups, right? Because she's in the incubator here. And you see this, all the startups are focused on driving revenue, driving sales, driving sales. Nobody seems to be focused on the other side of the equation.
and this is kind of where I'm getting at. This is my first thing here, is as an accountant, I tend to be more to the detriment of cutting too much cost, whereas you have marketers and all that want to spend, spend, spend. So one of the things with cost cutting is having a well balanced executive team that works together really well. You want to have you don't want to have somebody who just wants to spend. You want to have that accountant that kind of says, whoa, we're spending too much money, sort of keep everything in check, to keep the checks and balances, because together, united, you 1 + 1 is equal to 3, as opposed to just one person going, oh, let's spend here, spend, right? And another thing that is very important with cost cutting, believe it, is actually strategic planning, proper strategic planning and forecasting, and getting your forecasting correct and being able to adjust quickly. So not only just doing the planning things properly and correctly, but also putting in variance analysis. What ifs? What if we go into recession? What if there's a war in Russia? Well, no one would have predicted that one, but but you got to be prepared for certain changes in environment, and by doing projections and being able to adjust and being able to say, okay, we've ordered inventory, our inventory's higher, let's pull back on inventory, quickly. And by following up on your projections to say, okay, monitoring those projections, okay, we've ordered X amount of inventory, we're way over, okay, let's pull back on it, because believe it or not, today companies used to, a lot of the big retail companies used to carry a lot of inventory into the new year. Now they're actually stocking out. They want to stock out. That's why you can't buy, if you go shopping for Christmas for something around December 23rd, you can't buy it, because companies aren't restocking it. They'd save more money stocking out than they do carrying that inventory over into the next year. So it's proper planning. Well, you don't want to stock out either. You'd rather, because you're losing money there too. So
Just
it's
on time, right, Tom?
yeah, you want to make it, if you can get your inventory rate to zero right at the end of the year, that's the perfect scenarios. So it's really proper forecasting and planning and being able to adjust. So it's monitoring, not just doing the planning and the forecasting, it's monitoring that planning and forecasting to make sure it's meeting its objectives and at all times.
I love what Tom is saying here, Colin. And by the way, Tom is an expert analysis, modeler, but he's talking about getting in front of it, right? Like, so we're not like, oh my gosh, we can't meet payroll. What did we do properly, and how are we running the business? So that's some great input, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're talking about e-commerce businesses here. We all have firsthand on this one, and we've been burned pretty bad over the last year and a half. But one of the things we learned the most is test, and then scale in tens. Test 100 units, and then scale to 1,000, test that, and scale to 10,000 units. And that seems to be a better model than just gambling and assuming it'll happen. The other thing that you made me think about, Tom, was one of our culture statements in our at Hostopia, and we got up to about 600 employees here. But one of the value statements that we had was, we spend it like our own. And so we wanted everybody in the company to be thinking about cost management, cost containment, and to not be wasteful. That's the one thing that we really did not want, is to have you become so big and bloated and whatnot, and then you become wasteful. And I know when you spend it like your own, there's definitely a different mentality, and just setting that mentality within the organization. All right, great. Dan, we have you on stage.
Wait, we got
Oh,
a
sorry.
Jexel.
Oh, not on mine. Mine has got Dan and then Jexel on mine.
Oh,
PTR,
okay,
Michelle. So
okay,
Dan,
yeah.
we got you on stage next. You look like you're connected with Gary. For some reason, I'd like to hear that story. But Dan, do you have a tip or trick for us on how to save money with a startup? And mute is on the bottom right, but I think you know about that. And if Dan, you're not ready yet, let's just jump to you, Jexel. You're up. Jexel, you have a chance to share a tip with us here on how to save money. Thank you.
Oh, I think he's here. He's here right now.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm driving and I just have a lot of calls coming in. I'm Jexel. Thank you guys for bringing me up on stage. And to everybody else that's spoken, thank you for the information. For me, I have two startups that are working simultaneously on, and I use the the I would say use I involve college students, right? So I look for people that are interested in the things that I'm working on, and I bring them on as an experience or as uh, something that they can use to maybe eventually be a part of the team when they graduate. So that's like one of the things that I do. But of course, making sure that I I make it what they want, because you sometimes you see that there's some students that already have the knowledge and experience of certain things, but because they haven't graduated, they're not gonna be hired somewhere. But when you present them with an opportunity to practice what they know, it kind of it benefits you, and it also um, benefits them as well. So that's one of the ways that I can think of. I didn't plan to speak, so, and I'm driving.
Wow.
It would take a little bit more time for me to
Jexel,
find my thought.
you know what? I think that's a great hack, and it should be one of the top ones, right? Like hire smart people that have potential, even though they don't have necessarily the experience or a big resume.
Right.
Like I think that's so smart. And it's really a great way to, present a good, should I dare I say a cliche win-win situation
Mhm.
for a young person, or maybe not a young person, but for somebody who really wants to come in and work, and it's good for them and it's good for you. Great item. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
was at the on the cohort that I was working on this weekend. There was a lady there who had two employees, interns, working for nothing, helping her design her software. And I just thought that was amazing. With the idea that obviously if she became commercially viable, she would hire them as well. So that's a unique one. I think that's one that we don't often tap into, but really connecting with local colleges and high schools even. We actually had another person in the same cohort who told me they hired somebody from high school. So we don't want to forget high school students as well.
I would just warn you to be careful there. I had and this was years ago, but at my first company, I did that exact same thing. I hired someone that was in college as an intern, and I agreed to pay them an amount of money. And I agreed to, as we became more commercially viable, that they would get hired. And at the end of their internship, we signed all the documents, and then they decided that they were going to sue me with the Department of Labor because they wanted all of the other money that I had given them, or I had told them that I could give them if we got commercially viable, even though we never reached the commercial viability. And the Department of Labor sided with the other person because I didn't have all of my ducks in a row whenever I put my contract together. So if you're doing anything with anyone and they're doing it for free to save you money today, and you plan on becoming commercially viable, make sure you take the time to get all your ducks in a row, because it'll be extremely expensive in the future.
Crossing those T's, dotting those I's. When you do it early on, it saves you money down the road. I don't know if we could add that one to the list, but I think it qualifies. Um, all right, anyone on stage? We can go popcorn style here. If you want to throw in another idea, Jaxo, you got something?
Yeah, I mean, of course you're gonna have an agreement, and you may not necessarily. I mean, I didn't quite hear everything that they said, what Gary said, but you're gonna have an agreement, and you're gonna make sure that everybody understands what they're getting into, just to avoid um, future problems.
Yeah, but a lot of times to save money as a startup, you don't do all the proper agreements. You don't spend all the right money on the attorneys. You don't do everything that you would do if you had a lot of money because you're trying to save money.
Yeah,
But then you become successful, then you get into a bit of issue because you should have taken and spent the money, you didn't have it. So then you become successful and you're like, oh man, because now it's a big issue. Now someone says,
Yeah,
oh, now you have a lot of money.
that happened with like another business. I'm trying to avoid saying names because sometimes these things can be a little embarrassing. But that happened with another business in our incubator where we didn't file for the trademark. We launched the product, we didn't file for the trademark, and then 2 years later, somebody else filed for the trademark, and now we're challenging them legally for the trademark, and we should have just filed for the stupid trademark in the first place.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I think that's a big thing to bring up on, ways to save money is worry about saving money today, but also if you plan on being a $10 million or $100 million or $1 billion company, make sure you're not costing yourself exponentially more in the future by saving a couple dollars today.
Yeah,
yeah,
those are great
yeah.
tips. And also there are ways to protect yourself early on that are cost effective. So when it comes to filing for patents, et cetera, filing a formal patent application can cost many thousands of dollars and involve a lawyer and a lot of time. But there's something called a provisional patent that you can file, and the provisional patent can be done for a few $100s versus thousands of dollars. And what the provisional patent does essentially is buy you time and gives you, and I'm not an attorney, so this is from my experience and doing it, so I'm not giving legal advice, but a provisional patent will give you a year of protection during which time you have to file the formal patent application. So basically, you can establish your invention date and be able to call it, patent pending. And then as long as you file for your formal application within a year, that early date when you filed the provisional patent will apply. So it gives you some level of protection and lets you start that patent process if you have something proprietary that you want to patent without having to shell out thousands of dollars right up front. The only drawback is you can't, no application action will happen until the proper file is filed. So you're not really accelerating the process of getting that patent potentially, but at least you're putting your stake in the ground at a low cost early on.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great one. Sorry to cut in. How many times can you? So, for example, if you run out in the first year and you need to do it again, can you
Yeah.
do it again?
No, not for that same. I don't. Again, I'm not an attorney, so check. But I don't believe you can for the same patent application. It's a one-time
Oh,
opportunity.
okay.
Well, let's go. We got Dan on the stage here, and Dan's been patiently waiting. Dan, we're trying to hit 27 ways to save money for our startups. What do you think, Dan? Dan, you're
Yeah, I
on.
think
Yeah.
Dan had back channeled that he had some speaker problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so if you
too
have the
bad.
question, short enough question, you could do it in the back channel, Dan. He's from Nigeria. Big fan of Gears, Gary. I read that in the comments as well. I wonder if a giraffe is an example of a Gary fan or not. You've definitely, when I see a
Well,
giraffe now, I definitely
Colin, it's
think of
one of
you.
Gary's It's Gary's
Well,
NFTs.
yeah, they own the
I'm
NFT,
teasing. I
and the
know that. I
giraffe
know. I know.
are,
I know. What I'm saying is,
yeah, they're like $500 a piece. So every person wearing a giraffe, they've at least got $500 for their profile photo. So
No, that's awesome. We do want to stay on topic, but we should also have another session on that one, figure that one out, right? I read a recent study that 63% of people in 2021, with this great, the great resignation, left because of low pay. 63% of people, I don't know how they keep all these percentages work, but let's just go with it, okay? 63%, no opportunities for advancement. 57% of people feeling disrespected at work. So one of the things a saying that I have, and I've talked to other startups, is pay your people with love, freedom, and ownership. And what do I mean by that? When I talk about love, I'm talking really about recognizing who they are, respecting who they are, respect their achievements, celebrate their achievements, share their achievements with others. Like really do a much better job doing that than the Fortune 1000 companies. And again, I worked at a Fortune 500 company for many years, too many, three in total, by the way. But I never saw that happen. I just saw a very, difficult culture to survive in or thrive in even. I talk about ownership. There are ways of sharing, doing stock options or phantom options, or also using bonus sharing. So if the company does well, the employees do as well. The employees have a piece of the upside. The employees have something to gain when things go well. And lastly, we see this with freedom. I mean, we see this since the pandemic. Every company's been embracing this. And I know we have one of our employees, Olivia, who, when she first came to the incubator, she would pick up her son at 3 o'clock. He would come and kick the soccer ball around the office and run around. And then she decided she wanted to move. And it was fine. It was totally fine. We're cool with it. In fact, we sort of miss Matt. Matt was his name, right? Olivia, if you're listening. But we miss Olivia and Matt in the office. And then they decided to move to Chicago. And we said, okay, that's great. We love the fact you're moving to Chicago. Do what you want to do, but just stick with us. And she works at startup.club as well. So that's just an example of what I'm talking about here. Because we do see, when you lose good people, you lose money. And one of the best ways to save money is to not lose your staff, to keep and retain your staff. All right, do we have somebody else on the stage? Just throw it in popcorn style.
All right,
Michelle, I know you had
I'm
one.
going to throw one out there, okay? This is one that I've had tremendous success with, is renegotiate with your vendors, your suppliers. Like, you have these contracts that are rolling for years, or they didn't quite you know what everything they promised didn't quite come up. You don't have to go and dump them and be a painful thing. Just renegotiate with them. Let them be part of the success of the growth. Push their payouts out. Like that could be a tremendous cost saving. And then on the other side of that, if you have partners that maybe you're overpaying, I've been part of companies where we did renegotiations, and they agreed. You're providing far more service, and you're being very gracious. And we came to terms where it was more equitable. Like for a lot of companies, that can be a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, sharing your more often than not, startups are run by entrepreneurs who are type A personalities, and we're win, 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 win. But the reality is, and we're afraid to talk about our mistakes or our challenges. But the more that we share our challenges with our suppliers, the more they understand, and they can actually come back and help us out with those challenges. And but I always did like at Dot Club, Michelle, when you would negotiate a contract with someone, you get the deal, and then after this contract side, you go back for even more, a little bit extra placements for the domain on the search engine or whatever it is. You always seem to go back for more, even when you got the contract signed. And I thought that was a neat technique as well, Jeff.
Yeah, another tip I was thinking too is, and I remember doing this early on in a previous startup I was involved with, is empower your employees. And you can save money early on by empowering your employees for things that you might have otherwise hired someone. And what I mean specifically, if you're selling a product or service, maybe you need content created, maybe you need photography done or videos done. You may have an employee who's in the accounting department, not with that job description, who happens to be an avid photographer on the side and happens to have all the equipment and have a passion for photography. And even though it's not their job description, you might be able to leverage their interest in their hobby, and instead of hiring a freelance photographer, leverage that employee, and they know the company, they know your products, and they're excited to show off their talents in that area. And we were able to successfully do that when I worked at Mixer. Back in the days, we had one employee who was on the team who was an amazing photographer, and that was his hobby. It wasn't his job description, but anytime we needed photography, everything from promotional photography, social media stuff, even if we were at an event and we wanted photos taken, he always raised his hand and was happy to let us, let him use his own equipment so we didn't have to rent equipment and take amazing photographs. And long story short, he eventually was able to move into that full time and became a professional photographer. But we were able to tap in on his passion and his skills and save a lot of money and get some great stuff done at the same time. So leverage your employees, not just for their jobs per se, but find out what their passions are. And if they have other skills and interests, you can leverage them to the company's benefit and save money.
And what was that platform we used for the paw.com logo? Seemed very inexpensive process. It was Fiverr?
99 Designs.
Oh, 99 Designs, right, yeah. I think using a platform like 99 Designs or Fiverr, I mean, you can sometimes have a project and you can get it done for surprisingly, a low cost, and actually the quality is pretty good. I mean, we ran with the paw.com logo eventually, and it's the logo today. And I don't think we paid more than a few $100s for the logo. So that's an idea too, and we seem to have a lot of success with that. One other one I'll throw out here we had with Paw is we originally we had to spend a lot of money. We do spend a lot of money, about 10 million a year, on advertising through Google and Facebook and TikTok and all these other companies, these social networks. And we really weren't paying attention to the payments that we were making on the credit card. And last year we actually did $250,000 in cash back on our credit card. You could get a 2%. We have the Spark card, 2% Spark card, where 2% of anything we spend on that credit card comes back in cash. And last year we saved about $250,000, which is phenomenal in my opinion. It's almost like money coming out of nowhere. Like you just created this money. Before that, we weren't really tracking it. We were just using people's personal cards or whatever it was, and we weren't really
That's
capturing the
tax-free for you
points.
too. That's tax-free.
Well, no, it's not, because you're gonna boost your profits, and when you boost your profits, then you're gonna pay tax on the profits. Yeah, we don't live in Puerto Rico like you do.
Check with your accounting. You can move if you get a personal Spark card. You can receive the personal cash back tax-free on your business expenses.
Well, that's interesting. I'd have to look at that one. We maybe check the IRS code. Maybe Tom's sure you can share that one with us.
Yeah,
Either
Tom,
way,
look
it's a
it
great,
up.
it's a great hack. It really is. It's something that if you haven't already done so, on our other companies, I have another card. I use my black card, which is actually the gold one, which is 2% back. So that's something you wouldn't think about. These little tweaks, these little changes that we make in our startup can have huge impacts and cost savings.
All right. Colin, Mimi's trying to keep count, but we haven't quite hit 20. So I think let's try to like hit that 27. So I'm going to throw one out here real quickly. I'm going to say, don't forget, about your current customers. We all know it's much more expensive to acquire a customer as opposed to working and developing a loyal customer. So really build out your customers' loyalty programs to try to get more purchases. Is much more effective. All right, I'm looking for someone else.
I
This,
know, we got to come up. Come
this
on, Gary. You got some
come
other
on
ideas in
here.
that head of yours.
Yeah, and I'm thinking,
We did cover the BPO mindset, like this idea of business process outsourcing mindset. We talked about that, right, with the Philippines, and we got Olivia here. We were talking about you, Olivia, earlier.
right.
I don't know if you were here, but Olivia, you might have an idea for us as well. We're looking at ways startups can save money. A tip or a trick. If you're in the audience, it's Friday afternoon. Come on stage and have some fun with us.
Hi. I came here a little bit late, so I don't know if you guys talked about this already, but what I've learned is use what you have and make the most out of it instead of looking for other resources, other people. Just make the most of what you have right now.
And you know what triggered another one? And I was thinking about this today. I was talking about it at lunch. Was we walk around our office, we see, oh, we haven't touched this little robot thingy majiggy over here in 6 months. Oh, we haven't touched this other little thing in 6 months. Oh, we haven't. Walk around your office, figure out what you're not using, or your home, or whatever it is, and put it on eBay. Just let's clear out the stuff that's the non-producing assets in our business. What can we sell off? Move off. It might even be some IP that you might have that you could sell off. Who knows what it could be? Some old inventory. I don't know what it is, but we got to get rid of that stuff and clean out the closet.
Colin, I did a quick search, and according to a Forbes article, the IRS treats cash back as a rebate on spending and not taxable income. So I don't know if Tom can speak to that, but that may be a
That's
way that
great.
everybody can save money.
I love that. That makes sense. Like so obvious, right? But yet
That's
we don't
awesome.
always do it. Thanks.
Okay, but do you have another tip, Gary, other than playing a tax accountant? Do you have another tip for us? Oh, Jaxel, you got something for us. Jaxel.
Yeah, I mean this one is probably, I don't know if it would apply to everyone, but I know some people, um maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but I'll just say, um some people get together, buy real estate, and use that to fund their startups. So if it's something that, a startup can come together to, like a bunch of people that own different startups can come together, have equity on a cash flowing property, and that could be a hack too.
Well, one thing we did here in Fort Lauderdale when we built the incubator, we went to the city and we pitched the idea to the city, and they gave us $350,000. So that just triggered what you just said there, Jack. So it triggered that memory. So why not ask for money from your local government? Ask for help from your local government, or even national. I mean, there could be programs nationally as well. So that's an area I know as a Canadian, we often would think about how do we actually get government funding? That's sort of one of the first questions any startup, asks. But when I moved to the U.S., that mentality is not here. When in fact there are a lot of government programs out there ready to help startups. So that's another one that I think you can run with. Here's one more I came up with. Accounting. So this is going to irritate Tom, but you can actually set up the accounting with companies that have AI-based accounting systems like Zendu. Zendu, run by Lil Roberts. I know she's been a speaker on this show. You can run your books for about $200 a month. And now you gotta watch it closely here. We did hear about Tommy talked about, we got to spend the right time, do the right forecasting, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not suggesting that, getting rid of your accountant, who can help you save money in a lot of different ways makes sense. But in some startups, and we've used them for about 2 or 3 startups, a company called Zendu, they automated accounting, and it's $200 a month. And they got Oompa Loompas in the background too, helping to make certain that, all the entries are done correctly. And we were able to save with them. It's XEN. Zendu is XENDOO. And just for the record, I am an investor in that company too, so I'll disclose that. I don't want to be promoting any companies here that, obviously without disclosing anything. All right, we got a few more ideas. We got to kick. I think I got like 6 or 7 here, Michelle. I think you got to
Yeah,
come up with another
I
one.
just let it rip, okay? And we're gonna chime
I
in,
know.
okay?
But I'm out. I'm out. I don't have anything left. I'm just. That's it. Show me the money. I don't. That's it. I'm out. I'm
Yeah, all
out. You
right.
got to take over.
So I'll throw it out there. Like, I know it was very popular and, WeWorks and everything else in the startup culture to spend, quite a lot of money on, let's just say designer drinks, kombucha, fountains, whatever, like tons of treats and games. Like, is all that really necessary?
Okay, now you're gonna take away the
I
wine, the
don't
free
know.
wine. We have free wine in our office,
Do
just so you
we
know.
do we really? All right. So buy the
So
$10 bottle, not the $20 bottle, you
to take
know?
away our wine, we have a Friday cocktail hour. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, you should stop by. It's like, all the people here working in the startups and stuff. We gotta relax a little bit too. You're being too cheap, Michelle. We don't want to
No,
lose
no,
our
no,
wine
no.
and our
Well,
kombucha.
all right, conversely, it's cheaper to your point to have a little happy hour in the office versus taking everybody out, right? Where prices are 3x. So, I'm kind of like jumping back to Tom and just be like, are you actually looking at the expenses that you have? Because I guarantee you, in your personal life as well as your startup, there's always areas to optimize. At least I've always found that.
Great, Jeff.
So I apologize because I took a call. So if someone already gave this idea, I apologize. But, I talked before about leveraging your employees, but also another way to save, especially early on, is leveraging your customers. So if you already have product market fit and you have actual customers, you can leverage your customers to help you market your products at a low cost through a number of different ways. You can have a referral program where they get compensated for referring new customers. You can exchange products for service. And that's something you can do, by the way, not just with customers, but for other services. So if there's a service that you need and you don't want to pay cash for it, but you actually have a product that has value, you might be able to do barter and barter some of your products, which then you're getting the retail value, but it's only really costing you your cost of goods. So you're saving money that way. So in other words, if you needed, the services of something and it was going to cost $5,000, you might give them $5,000 worth of product, but you're giving it to them at the retail price, but it doesn't cost you that much. So you're making the difference. So you're basically getting their services at a significant discount, if that makes sense. So you can leverage existing customers. You can leverage barter as a way to reduce your cash outlays when you're starting out.
No, I like the barter idea. That's a good one. We used to do that in my first startup in the '90s, going way back then. Um, yeah. We did talk about applying for grants. We've already talked about that. Sharing an office. We've talked about that. Um,
I have an idea.
Technology. There is a there. Yeah. I just try to, one more is technology. There are
Yeah.
ways we can use technology to save money. Some ways, like you're right, Jeff, we have to watch those subscription plans, but technology is an enabler. It's something that can provide better services and lower cost operating, and not to be afraid of it. If we can find those technological apps, or I'll give you an example of one that we use. We could put this in the blog. Is the Maintain X. So I have a lot of companies and a lot of chaos, and it's all sort of organized very simply by using this app called Maintain X, and nothing falls through the cracks. I can't even imagine how it would operate without that. But that's one. Olivia, you said you had something?
Yes. Until you have the money to get all those softwares and those like the technology to help you, maybe learn to do certain things yourself. Like not to a point of burnout, but wear many hats in terms of learn new things and get some things figured out on your own. Like use your and model it to your team too. Like if you can instead of I don't know, paying for those subscription plans for scheduling social media. Just learn how to do it yourself, and then once you get the money, you can subscribe and use those tools. That's an example.
Awesome. Here's a tip or trick that. Oh, sorry, Jexel, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna say that's awesome. But however, sometimes it gets to the point where you don't even have the time to do those things, even if you know how to do them. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. It's a balance, right? You got to figure out, like, and that could be a point, like, where are you better doing things manually versus automating? Like, you can go overboard on either side of that equation and be inefficient. So, just efficiency itself can be a cost saving method.
Yeah, and sorry, Michelle. Also, what we've done at Startup Club, we've created a process, a manual process, and then we've looked for technology that can recreate that and automate it. So basically, we test it, and if it works, then we get the app or the software that actually can automate that process.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, I have another one. I got another one. And I do this now, a lot of my companies, I've been sucked into this as well. Zendu is a company example of this, is set up an advisory board. And I'll tell you why an advisory board. We don't want to do a board of directors because the board of directors comes with expensive insurance. Pretty much you're not going to get a real board of directors unless you insure, unless you have the expensive insurance to go along with it. So if you can avoid a board of directors and actually set up an advisory board, not one, you're not spending all the extra money associated with that insurance, but you're also getting a lot of talent surrounding your startup for free. And you're also surrounding your startup with potentially some very good names in your industry to give you credibility. So this is a way to actually grow your startup, but it's also a neat way to save money because you've got resources now, people who are going to make connections for you. They're going to help you make sales. They're going to help you with strategy. You got all these resources, and you're getting them for free. And I don't think they can go to the government like they did with Gary's case and complain about the fact that they weren't paid. They're board advisors, and you can put them on your website. Every startup should have an
They're
advisory board.
not bored. They're bored.
Exactly. There you go.
All right. So Mimi is telling me that we have now surpassed 27. So I think this room has been, we're on the subject about saving money. This has been a good use of my time. And I appreciate everyone who's given these cost saving tips. And I've written down several I'm going to, check out. But before we leave and do a quick round for anything we left out, please don't forget we have a website that's actually free that has amazing resources, podcasts. There's blogs. You can join our email list to get, event notifications when there's cool things coming up. You do that by going to, if you look above here, above Colin's head, it's www.startup.club. We're here. We're the Serial Entrepreneur Club. We are here every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and our goal is to do anything and everything to help entrepreneurs succeed. So, Colin, before we leave, we have 5 minutes. Maybe we could do a very fast run. Is there anything that we've left out?
Well, we have Carrie on stage
Yeah,
here. I don't know if she has something
Carrie.
to add to our list, or she has an idea, a tip or trick or a hack, Carrie, that you'd like to share with us.
Hello, hello. Thank you for bringing me up. And I'm so mad that I missed this because I'm on Central Time. I had to, when I raised my hands when you guys were talking about the board of advisors, I just want to caution people that not all advisory board members will do it for, in air quotes, free. they may want a small, and it is appropriate to give them a very small, even cliff thing, depending on what their expertise is, to give them cliff options or equity. So just really, again, especially when you're looking for intros and all that. And the other thing is, every time I hear the word board of directors, I want to tell new entrepreneurs, be careful with a board of directors, even when you're able to afford the insurance, and even when you're a corporation, the people that you put on it are on it, because that very same board can remove you from your company, whether you're ready or not. So just wanted to add that. And the last thing I'll say is, although I heard you guys just start talking about it, one of our very, very smart investors told us early on, if you want to waste a lot of money, go and put a lot of money into beautiful offices and expensive drinks and all of that, and overemploy, because startups seem to think that if the more employees you have, the better of a startup you are, or more confirmation that you're doing your thing. And I will tell you, Mixtros has done its thing with 6 employees, and 2 of them are the founders. So just wanted to add that to this awesome conversation.
Yeah, and there's so much I want to add to this. One, where were you when I was 28 years old and I almost lost control of the board and almost got fired, and it was a publicly traded company. The fact is, you're right. We got to be very careful about the board at that level. It's a different game. There's a lot of politics involved. And what I do with my board of advisory boards is I generally give them a quarter point of the company in options, not in stock, in options, so that if the company hits a value of, let's say, 10 million, they're going to now reap the benefits. I want, obviously I think it's important with every, key employee to make certain they get some upside, especially if they're sacrificing from a financial perspective. And, that's great. We love those suggestions, and your idea about not overstaffing. This idea you got to, I call it the Silicon Valley disease. These companies. I'm working with one right now. It's a sad story. They raised over $60 million, hired tons of people, and the entrepreneur worked for 14 years. And the chances of that entrepreneur getting 1 cent from this company is almost zero. And in fact, when they do ultimately sell or exit, all of that money will be paid to the venture capitalists who came in. So you talked about overstaffing. I think over-financing is also not necessarily the smartest move. And financing the right type of financing for your startup, which I think we've done a show once on as well, but we should really repeat that show. But the right financing for your startup, that's absolutely critical and key. You want to minimize dilution and minimize interest, and those are the things we want to think about when we raise money. Carrie, that was a nice way to finish it. I know we're out of time right now. I just want to say next week, so we've been doing a few of these shows where we take a particular industry. We did it with tokenizing real estate. It's one of the prior episodes. And by the way, that is taking off. I just met another gentleman in my cohort that I was teaching. He actually was doing tokenizing real estate as well. We did one on Airbnbs last week. If you're thinking about Airbnbs, that's a great show. We had some real experts on there and some tips and tricks. Next week, we have 2 real estate investors. One of them is a big personality here on Clubhouse. He's got about 600 homes, Giuseppe. And the other is a gentleman I've known, personal friend of mine. He's got about 1,200 homes in the Fort Lauderdale area. And he came here as an immigrant, a penniless immigrant, and was able to build up that portfolio. So we're talking about real estate next week, and real estate investing, which happens to be the #1 way people generate wealth in America or in any country in the world. So we think it's an important topic to have its own show. All right, thank you very much, everyone, especially those on stage. Carrie, wait, don't leave, Carrie. I want to make sure I'm following you. That was such good advice. We really love it when we have people like yourself or Jexel coming back on stage for these shows and really contributing. It's all about the community, and today you proved it once again. Thank you all, and we shall see you next week.
Thank you so much.